The smell hit Captain Li Guan before he saw anything else. It was a mix of rotting food, fuel waste, and something else he could not name. He stood at the edge of the trash disposal area on Nexus Station, looking down at the massive bins that held garbage from hundreds of ships. The station workers had called him here for a pickup of medical waste. But now he wondered if this was worth the small payment. Jiwan was a cargo hauler, nothing fancy. His ship, the New Soul, carried supplies. Between the outer colonies and the main trade routes, it was honest work, but it barely paid enough to keep his small crew fed and his ship running. At 32, he had been doing this job for 8 years, and every day felt the same. Load cargo, fly to destination, unload cargo, repeat. He was about to turn away when he heard a sound. It was soft, almost like a kitten crying, but not quite. Jiwan stopped and listened. There it was again, coming from inside one of the bins. "Hello?" he called out. "Is someone there?" The sound came again, weaker this time. Jiwan looked around for a ladder or something to help him climb into the bin. He found a maintenance platform nearby and wheeled it over. The smell got worse as he got closer, but he ignored it. What he saw inside made him stop breathing for a moment. Curled up between bags of rotting food and broken equipment was a small creature. It was about the size of a house cat, with dark gray scales that looked dull and lifeless. 2 tiny wings stuck out from its back, but they were so small they seemed useless. Its head was shaped like a triangle, with large eyes that watched him with a mix of fear and hope. It was a dragon. A baby dragon. G1 had seen dragons before, but only in videos and pictures. The real ones were massive creatures that could fly through space and breathe fire hot enough to melt metal. They were beautiful, powerful, and worth more money than Jiwan would see in his entire life. But this little thing looked nothing like those magnificent beasts. The baby dragon made the crying sound again, and Jiwan saw that it was shaking. Whether from cold or fear, he could not tell. Without thinking, he reached down and carefully picked it up. The creature was so light it felt like he was holding air. "What are you doing here, little one?" he whispered. The dragon looked up at him with huge eyes and made a soft chirping sound. It did not try to bite or scratch. Instead, it seemed to relax in his hands. "Hey, you found it." Guan turned to see a security officer walking toward him. The man was tall and wore the blue uniform of station security. His name tag read Officer. "Choi Minho, this is yours?" Juan asked, holding the dragon carefully. Minho shook his head. "Not exactly. We have been getting complaints about noise from the disposal area for 3 days. Finally found the source." He pointed at the dragon. "Someone dumped it here." "Dumped it? This is a dragon. These are worth millions." "Not that one," Minho said with a sad smile. "That little thing is what they call defective. It's been rejected by 7 different buyers in the past month. The dragon registry marked it as worthless." Giwan looked down at the small creature in his hands. It had stopped shaking and was now looking around with curious eyes. "What is wrong with it?" "Everything according to the experts. Too small, wrong. Color wings do not work properly, and it cannot breathe fire. Dragons are supposed to be magnificent and powerful. This one is just ... ordinary." The word ordinary hit Jiwan harder than he expected. He had been called ordinary his whole life. Too ordinary to join the military, too ordinary to work for the big shipping companies. Too ordinary to do anything but haul cargo between forgotten colonies. "So what happens to it now?" he asked. "Same thing that happens to all the rejects," Minho said. "It gets put to sleep. Kindly, of course. The station cannot afford to feed creatures that have no value." The dragon made another soft sound and pressed closer to Giwan's chest. Could feel its tiny heart beating fast. When Giwan asked, "Tomorrow morning, the vet comes in at 8. Juan looked at the dragon again. It was watching him with those large eyes, and he could swear it understood every word they were saying. "I will take it," he said suddenly. Minho raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? This thing is going to eat, and it will not give you anything back. Dragons are expensive to feed and care for." I said I will take it. "You need to understand something, Captain. This is not a pet. Dragons are intelligent creatures. They live for hundreds of years, and they never forget. If you take it, you are responsible for it for the rest of your life. Guan nodded. I understand. Minho pulled out a data pad and started typing. I need your ship registration and captain license. Here's some paperwork, but I can process it quickly. Honestly, I am glad someone wants it. I have been watching it for 3 days, and it breaks my heart. While Minho worked on the paperwork, Giwan continued to hold the dragon. It had completely stopped shaking now, and seemed content to stay in his arms. He noticed that its scales were not actually gray, but a very dark blue that caught the light in interesting ways. What do dragons eat? He asked. Meat mostly, and they need special minerals for their scales. The baby ones can eat processed food, but it costs about 50 credits per day. 50 credits per day. That was a lot of money for someone like Juwan, but he had already decided. He was not going to let this little creature die just because it was different. Done, Minho said, handing him the data pad to sign. Congratulations, Captain. You are now the proud owner of one reject dragon. Guan signed the papers and handed the pad back. Does it have a name? The registry calls it D7749. Not very friendly, is it? Guan looked down at the dragon, which was now making soft purring sounds. I think I will call you Biao. It means star in Korean. The dragon, now named Biel, looked up at him and made a happy chirping sound. For the first time since he had found her, Jiwan smiled. Come on, Biel. Let me show you your new home. As they walked toward the docking bay, where the new soul waited, Jiwan wondered what he had gotten himself into. He had never owned a pet before, let alone a dragon. His crew was going to think he had lost his mind. But when he looked down at Biel, who was now completely relaxed in his arms, he knew he had made the right choice. Sometimes the most important decisions in life happen in a moment without thinking or planning. Sometimes you just know what is right, even when everyone else thinks you are wrong. And sometimes the most ordinary person can make the most extraordinary difference in the life of a creature that just needed someone to care. The crew of the new soul was not happy. Captain, are you completely insane? Park Hyun-woo stood in the middle of the cargo bay, his arms crossed and his face red with anger. The ship's engineer was usually calm and quiet, but right now he looked ready to explode. Barely have enough credits to keep this ship running, and you bring home a dragon? Giwan sat on a supply crate, holding Bile in his lap. The little dragon had not left his side since they boarded the ship 2 hours ago. She seemed nervous around the other crew members, but with Jiwan, she was completely relaxed. It is just temporary, Giwan said, though he was not sure he believed it himself, until we can find her a better home. Her Kim Naeon, the ship's navigator, looked up from her data pad. You already decided it is female, and gave it a name. She needed a name, Jiwan said simply. Naeon shook her head. Do you know how much it costs to feed a dragon? Even a small one? You're already cutting corners on everything. Last week we had to eat emergency rations because we could not afford fresh food. Bial made a soft sound and pressed closer to Jiwan. He could feel her tiny body trembling, and he wondered if she understood what they were saying. Look, Hyunwoo said, sitting down across from Jiwan. I know you have a good heart, Captain, but we have to be realistic here. Dragons are not pets. They are wild animals. What happens when it gets bigger? What happens when it starts breathing fire? She cannot breathe fire, Juan said. That is why she was rejected. She is different. Different how? Guan looked down at Biel. I am not sure yet. But she is special. I can feel it. Naeon and Hyunwoo exchanged a look. They had been working with Giwan for 3 years, and they had never seen him act like this before. He was usually practical and careful with money. Taking in a dragon was completely unlike him. Captain Naeon said gently, Where is she going? To sleep? We do not have extra space on this ship. She can sleep in my quarters, Giwan said. And what about when we reach the outer rim? Colonies there do not allow dragons. They are afraid of them. Guan had not thought about that. The outer rim colonies were small and poor, and they had strict rules about dangerous animals. Even a small dragon might cause problems. We will figure it out, he said finally. That night, Gi-hwan learned something interesting about his new companion. He'd set up a small bed for Bial in the corner of his quarters, using old blankets and a pillow. But when he woke up in the morning, she was curled up on his pillow right next to his head. "How did you get up here?" he asked. Boyle opened her eyes and made a happy chirping sound. Her tiny wings flapped once, but they were clearly too small to lift her onto the bed. Ji-won sat up and looked around the room. His quarters were small, with just a bed, a desk, and a small closet. The bed was about 3 feet off the floor. There was no way Bial could have jumped that high. "Did you climb up?" he asked. Bial just looked at him with her large eyes and made another chirping sound. Over the next few days, Guan began to notice other strange things about Bial. She seemed to understand everything he said, not just simple commands, but complicated conversations. When he was working on reports at his desk, she would sit quietly and watch him, as if she was learning. She also had an unusual effect on the ship's systems. The new Soul was an old cargo hauler, and its computers were always glitching. Since Bial arrived, the systems had been running smoothly. Hyun-woo mentioned it during their morning briefing. "I do not understand it," the engineer said. "Yesterday the navigation computer was acting up again. Today it is working perfectly. Maybe you fix them without." Realizing it, Nayeon suggested. Hyun-woo shook his head. "I've been working on these systems for months. Nothing I did should have made this much difference." Gi-won looked at Bial, who was sitting on his lap during the meeting. She was listening to everything they said, her head tilted to one side like a curious cat. "Could it be related to Bial?" he asked. "A dragon fixing our computers? That is impossible?" Hunwa said, but Ji-won was not so sure. Dragons were supposed to be highly intelligent. Maybe Bial was more special than anyone realized. The real test came during their second week in hyperspace. They were traveling to New Centauri Colony, a journey that usually took 3 weeks. It was a routine trip, carrying medical supplies. And farming equipment? Nothing dangerous or exciting. Guan was in his quarters reading a book when Bial suddenly became agitated. She started pacing around the small room, making worried sounds. Her scales, which were usually dark blue, began to shimmer with flecks of silver. "What is wrong, girl?" Juan asked. Bial ran to the door and scratched at it. When Juan opened it, she ran down the corridor toward the bridge. Juan followed her, concerned. On the bridge, Nayeon was at her usual station, monitoring their course. Everything looked normal. "Is there a problem?" Ji-won asked. "No, sir. All systems are green. We should reach New Centauri in 10 days. But Bial was not satisfied. She jumped onto Nayeon's console and started making urgent sounds. Her scales were now shimmering brightly, and she kept looking at the main display screen. "Get her off my console," Nayeon said. "She might damage something." Gi-won was about to pick up Bial when the proximity alarm went off. 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of them. The lead ship was broadcasting a pirate signal. "Emergency drop to normal space," Nayeon said, her fingers flying over the controls. The new Soul shuddered as it fell out of hyperspace. On the screen, they could see 3 heavily armed ships moving toward them. These were not ordinary pirates. They had military-grade weapons and shields. "They are jamming our communications," Hyun-woo reported from the engineering station. "We cannot call for help." Gi-won stared at Bial, who had stopped making noise and was now watching the screen calmly. Her scales were still shimmering, but she seemed less agitated now. "How did she know?" he whispered. "Know what?" Nayeon asked. "She knew they were coming. She was trying to warn us." Hyun-woo looked at the dragon with new respect. "That is impossible. We were in hyperspace. There is no way to detect ships in normal space while in hyperspace, but Bial had done exactly that. Somehow, she had sensed the pirates waiting for them and tried to warn the crew. If they had not stopped to figure out what was wrong with her, they would have dropped out of hyperspace right in the middle of the pirate ambush. "The lead ship is hailing us," Nayeon said. "Put them through," Gi-won said. A rough voice filled the bridge. "Cargo vessel, this is Captain Blade of the Red Comet. Prepare to be boarded, do not resist, and you will not be harmed." Gi-won looked at his crew. They were outnumbered and outgunned. The new soul had no weapons and weak shields. In a straight fight, they would lose quickly. But they had something the pirates did not expect. They had advance warning, thanks to Bael. Nain, plot a course back to hyperspace. Maximum speed. Sir, we need time to charge the hyperspace drive. How long? Minutes. Can we avoid them for 10 minutes? Neon looked at her instruments. Maybe if we are very lucky. Giwan picked up Bael and held her close. What do you think, girl? Can we outrun them? Aya looked at him with her large eyes and made a soft, confident sound. Her scales had stopped, shimmering, and she seemed calm again. Take us out of here, Juan said. The next 10 minutes were the longest of their lives. The new soul twisted and turned through space, using every trick Neon knew to avoid the pirate ships. The pirates were faster and more maneuverable, but they had been caught off guard by the sudden escape attempt. Just as the pirates were closing in, hyperspace drive finished charging. The new soul jumped back into hyperspace, leaving the confused pirates behind. How did we do that? Hyunwoo asked, breathing hard. We had help, Giwan said, looking at Bael. She had curled up in his arms and was purring softly, as if nothing unusual had happened. That night, Giwan did not even try to make Bael sleep in her own bed. She had earned the right to sleep wherever she wanted. As he lay in his bunk with the small dragon curled up next to him, he thought about what had happened. Bael was not just different. She was special in ways that no one understood yet. She had abilities that other dragons did not have. She could sense danger before it happened. And somehow she could help their ship's computers work better. But most importantly, she had chosen to use those abilities to protect him and his crew. She was not just a pet or a burden. She was a member of their family now, and families looked out for each other. Haven Colony was nothing like the big space stations. It was small, quiet, and built on the surface of a rocky planet that barely had enough air to breathe. The colony had maybe 2,000 people, most of them farmers or miners. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else. And strangers were noticed immediately. Juan walked through the main street with Bael riding on his shoulder. She had grown a little in the past month, now about the size of a small dog, but she still preferred to stay close to him. The colonists stared as they passed, some with curiosity and others with fear. Dragons were rare out here, even small ones. We need to be careful, Nayan said, walking beside him. Some of these people have never seen a dragon before. She is harmless, Guan said, reaching up to pet Bael. She made a happy sound and rubbed her head against his hand. Try telling them that. They were here to deliver farming equipment and pick up a load of processed minerals. It was supposed to be a simple 2-day stop, but their ship had developed a problem with the air recycling system. Hyunwoo was working on it, but he said it would take at least a week to fix. The colony had a small medical center, and Juwan had heard they had a doctor who knew about alien biology. He wanted to have Bael checked out, just to make sure she was healthy. She ate well and seemed happy, but he worried about her. She was so different from other dragons that he had no idea if she was developing properly. The medical center was a small building near the center of town. Inside, they found a middle-aged man with kind eyes and gentle hands. His name was Dr. Yu Sungmin, and he had been the colony's doctor for 15 years. I have never examined a dragon before, he said, looking at Bael with interest. But I have studied alien biology, may I? Guan nodded and carefully placed Bael on the examination table. She did not seem nervous, which surprised him. Usually she was shy around strangers. Dr. Yu began his examination slowly and carefully. He listened to her heart, looked at her eyes, and tested her reflexes. Bael sat quietly through it all, occasionally making soft sounds. She seems very healthy, Dr. Yu said. Good muscle tone, clear eyes, strong heartbeat. But there is something unusual about her. What do you mean? Her bone structure is different from what I would expect, and her scale patterns are not typical. For void flame dragons? He paused and looked closer. May I take a small sample of her scales? Just 1 or 2? I want to run some tests. Juan looked at Bael, who tilted her head as if she understood. She made a soft sound that seemed like agreement. Dr. Yu carefully removed 2 small scales from Bial's back. She did not seem to feel any pain. This will take a few hours. Can you come back later? Kind of tests, Yuan asked. Genetic analysis. I have a feeling your dragon is more special than you realize. That evening, Yuan returned to the medical center alone. Bial was back on the ship, sleeping in his quarters. Dr. Yua was waiting for him with a serious expression. Sit down, doctor said. We need to talk. Yuan sat in the chair across from Dr. Yu's desk. Is something wrong with her? Wrong? No. No, nothing is wrong. But she is not what everyone thinks she is. Dr. Yu pulled up a display screen showing genetic charts. Your dragon is not a pure void flame dragon. She is a hybrid. Hybrid? What does that mean? It means she has the genes of 2 different species. Part of her is void flame dragon, yes. But the other part is something I thought was extinct, doctor. You touched the screen, and another genetic pattern appeared. This is the genetic pattern of a species called dreamweavers. They were ancient creatures that lived thousands of years ago. Most people think they all died out long ago. Dream weavers. I have never heard of them. Not many people have. They were very different from dragons. They were smaller, more peaceful, and they had special abilities. They could sense emotions and sometimes see things before they happened. They were connected to what some people call psychic energy. Yuan thought about how Bial had warned them about the pirates. Are you saying she can see the future? Not exactly. There's more like she can sense when something dangerous is about to happen. Dreamweavers were very sensitive to the emotions and intentions of other creatures. They could feel when someone meant harm. That explains how she knew about the pirates. Dr. Yu nodded. Exactly, and there is more. Dreamweavers were also known to have a calming effect on others. They could help people think more clearly and make better decisions. Have you noticed anything like that? Juan thought about it. Since Bial arrived, his crew had been working better together. They argued less and seemed more focused on their jobs. Even their ship's computers had been running more smoothly. Maybe, he said, the combination of Void Flame Dragon and Dreamweaver. Genetics is fascinating. She has the intelligence and loyalty of a dragon, but the emotional sensitivity and psychic abilities of a Dreamweaver. She is probably the first of her kind. If Dreamweavers are extinct, how is this possible? Doctor, you looked uncomfortable. That is where things get complicated. Dreamweavers were not completely extinct. A few survived, but they have been hiding for centuries. Someone, somewhere, managed to breed a Dreamweaver with a Void Flame Dragon. The result is your Bial. Why would they hide? Right. Because they were hunted. Dreamweavers were peaceful creatures, but their abilities made them valuable to the wrong people. Military organizations wanted to use them as weapons. Criminals wanted to use them to control others. Eventually, most of them were captured or killed. Giwan felt a chill. Are you saying Bial is in danger? I am saying that if the wrong people find out what she is, they will do anything to get her. The Hegemony Empire has been looking for Dreamweaver genetics for decades. They believe they can use it to create psychic weapons. What should I do? Dr. Yu was quiet for a moment. Keep her secret. Do not tell anyone else what she is, and be very careful who you trust. What about you? Will you tell anyone? I'll not say anything. But I am not the only one who can run these tests. If you take her to other doctors, they might figure it out too. Guan stood up. Thank you for telling me this. I need to think about what to do. There is one more thing, Dr. Yu said. Your bond with her is unusual. Most dragons are independent even when they are young. But Bial has formed a very strong attachment to you that is more like Dreamweaver behavior. Is that bad? Not bad, just different. Dreamweavers were known to bond with one person very strongly. They would be completely loyal to that person for their entire lives. If Bial has inherited that trait, she will never want to leave you. Giwan walked back to his ship slowly, thinking about everything Dr. Yu had told him. When he reached his quarters, he found Bial waiting for him on his bed. She looked up at him with her large eyes and made a soft, questioning sound. Hey, girl, he said, sitting down next to her. how are you feeling? Dial crawled over and put her head on his lap. Her scales were shimmering slightly the way they did when she was content. Dr. Yu says you are very special, Juan said, petting her gently. More special than we thought. Dial made a happy sound and closed her eyes. She trusted him completely, just like always. Guan thought about what Dr. Yu had said about the Hegemony Empire and other dangerous groups. He had never been involved in anything political or dangerous. He was just a cargo hauler who wanted to live quietly and take care of his crew. But now he had Baiyao. She was apparently one of the most unique creatures in the galaxy. People would want to take her away from him to use her abilities for their own purposes. He looked down at her peaceful face and made a decision. He would not let anyone hurt her. She had chosen to trust him, and he would not let her down. I promise, he whispered to her. I will keep you safe. Bial opened her eyes and looked at him. For just a moment, he could swear she understood exactly what he was saying. Then she closed her eyes again and went back to sleep. Outside his window, the stars were shining brightly. Somewhere out there, people were probably already looking for creatures like Baiyao. The galaxy was a big place, but it was also full of people who wanted to use others for their own gain. Gi-wan would have to be smarter and more careful than he had ever been before. He would have to protect not just Baiyao, but also his crew and his ship. Because once the wrong people found out about Baiyao, their quiet life would be over. But tonight, at least, they were safe. Baiyao was sleeping peacefully on his bed, and his crew was resting after a long day of work. Tomorrow, they would continue their journey, and he would figure out how to keep his promise. He had rescued a dragon that no one else wanted. Now, he had to make sure she stayed free. The first sign of trouble came 3 days after leaving Haven Colony. Guan was in the galley having breakfast when Nahian rushed in, her face pale with worry. Captain, we have a problem, she said. I am picking up signals from multiple ships following us. They have been tracking us for at least 12 hours. Guan put down his coffee. How many ships? At least 6, maybe more. They are staying just at the edge of our sensor range, but they are definitely following us. Bile, who had been eating from her food bowl, suddenly stopped and looked up. Her scales began to shimmer with that silver light that meant she was sensing danger. What kind of ships? Juan asked. Mixed group. I see military signatures, civilian vessels, and at least one that looks like a pirate ship. They are not working together, Captain. They are all hunting the same thing. Guan did not need to ask what they were hunting. He looked at Bael, who was now making worried sounds. How did they find us? He asked.
I do not know.
We have not made any transmissions since Haven Colony. Hunwu came running into the galley. Captain, someone is trying to hack our computer systems. I managed to block them, but they were looking for information about our cargo and passengers. Did they get anything? I do not think so, but whoever is doing this is very good. Almost broke through our security. Guan picked up Bael and held her close. She was trembling slightly, and her scales were now bright silver. Someone at Haven Colony must have talked. Dr. Yu promised he would not tell anyone, Neon said. Maybe he did not mean to. Maybe someone overheard or saw the test results. Hyunwoo sat down heavily. What do we do now? We cannot outrun 6 ships. We need to find out who they are first, Juan said. Maybe we can lose them or find help. Somewhere. Over the next few hours, they learned more about their pursuers. Neon used the ship's passive sensors to identify the vessels without alerting them. The largest ship was a Hegemony Empire cruiser called the Iron Fist. It was commanded by someone named Commander Kong Suyang. It carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. There were also 3 ships from the Shadow Syndicate, a criminal organization that dealt in illegal weapons and stolen technology. Their leader was a man called Yoon Ji-hoon, who had a reputation for being completely ruthless. The most surprising pursuer was a ship from the Void Flame Dragon Consortium. This was the organization that controlled dragon breeding and sales across the galaxy. Their ship was called the Golden Scale, and it was carrying a delegation led by Elder Beak Murray. Why would the Dragon Consortium want Bael? Neon asked. But they already rejected her. Maybe they changed their minds, Giwon said. But he suspected it was something else. If word had gotten out about Bial's true nature, every powerful group in the galaxy would want her. The sixth ship was the most mysterious. It had no identification and was using technology that Hunhua did not recognize. Whoever is flying that ship does not want to be identified, the engineer said. They are using some kind of signal scrambler that I have never seen before. As they watched their pursuers, Jiwan noticed that Bial was becoming more agitated. She would not eat, and she kept making worried sounds. Her scales were constantly shimmering now, and she refused to leave his side. She knows they are coming for her, he said. Dragons are supposed to be brave, Neon said. Why is she so scared? She is not scared for herself, Jiwan realized. She is scared for us. That evening, the first direct contact came. The Iron Fist sent a message to the New Soul. Cargo vessel New Soul, this is Commander Kang Suyang of the Hegemony Empire. You are carrying something that belongs to the Empire. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Jiwan responded carefully. Commander, we are a licensed cargo hauler. All our cargo and passengers are properly documented. Do not play games with me, Captain. We know about the dragon. Hand it over peacefully, and no one will be harmed. I do not know what you are talking about. There was a long pause. Then Commander Kong's voice came back, colder than before.
Captain,
we have been tracking unusual energy signatures from your ship. The kind of signatures that only come from Dreamweaver genetics. You have 24 hours to surrender the creature. After that, we will take it by force. The transmission ended. Guan looked at his crew, who were all staring at him with wide eyes. Dreamweaver genetics, Huanwu said. What is she talking about? Guan had not told his crew about Dr. Yu's discovery. He had wanted to protect them, but now he realized they needed to know the truth. Bial is not just a defective dragon, he said. She is a hybrid. Part dragon, part Dreamweaver. What is a Dreamweaver? Aeon asked. Jiwan explained everything Dr. Yu had told him. By the time he finished, both crew members were looking at Bial with new understanding. So that is why. She can sense danger, Neon said. And why our computers have been working better, Hunwu added. She has been helping us without us knowing it. Vial seemed to understand that they were talking about her. She made a soft sound and looked at each of them with her large eyes. The question is, what do we do now? Juan said. We could try to. Run, Nyan suggested. Maybe find a place to hide. Where? They have been tracking us for days. Probably have our hyperspace signature by now. What about fighting? Hunu asked. Giwan almost laughed. With what? We have no weapons. And weak shields. That hegemony cruiser could destroy us without even slowing down. Then what? Before Giwan could answer, the ship's communication system activated again. This time it was a different voice, rougher and more threatening. New Soul, this is Yoon Ji-hoon of the Shadow Syndicate. I know the Empire contacted you, but they are not the only ones who want your cargo. I am prepared to pay you 50 million credits for the dragon. Cash, no questions asked. 50 million credits. It was more money than Jawan would make in his. The entire lifetime. For a moment, he was tempted. With that much money, he could buy a new ship, retire somewhere safe, take care of his crew for the rest of their lives. But then he looked at Bile, who was watching him with complete trust. She had no idea that people were discussing her like she was a piece of cargo to be bought and sold. Not interested, he said into the communicator. Think carefully, Captain. The Empire wants to turn your dragon into a weapon. I just want to study it. The creature will be treated well. I said no. You are making a mistake. I can offer you protection from the Empire and the Dragon Consortium, but only if you cooperate. Gyuan turned off the communicator without responding. The third message came an hour later. This time it was Elderbeak from the Dragon Consortium. Captain Lee, I am Elderbeak Murray. We need to talk about the abomination you are carrying. Abomination? Gyuan felt anger rising in his chest. That creature is a violation of everything dragons stand for. It is a corruption of pure dragon genetics. The consortium has declared it a threat to our species. She is just a baby. She is a mistake that should never have been allowed to exist. Surrender her to us, and we will dispose of her humanely." Dispose of her? Giwan was furious now. She is not a piece of garbage. She is an insult to all true dragons. We will not allow this contamination to spread. Guan cut the transmission. He was shaking with anger, and Baal seemed to sense his emotions. She made comforting sounds and pressed against him. "They want to kill her," he said to his crew. "The Empire wants to use her as a weapon. The criminals want to study her. And the Dragon Consortium wants to kill her because she is different." "So what do we do?" Neon asked. G1 looked at Baal again. She was so small and innocent. She wanted was to be loved and protected. She had never hurt anyone, and she had actually saved their lives by warning them about the pirates. "We run," he said. "Find somewhere safe and we disappear." "Where can we go?" "They will track us anywhere." "I have an idea," Hyunwoo said. "What about the neutral zone?" "No government has authority there, and it is full of people who do not ask questions." The neutral zone was a dangerous area of space where pirates, smugglers, and outcasts gathered. It was not controlled by any major power, which meant it was lawless and violent. But it also meant that no one would turn them over to the Empire or anyone else. "It is risky," Neon said. "The neutral zone is full of people who would sell us out for the right price. But it is also full of people who hate the Empire and the big corporations," Hyunwoo pointed out. "Some of them might help us." Giwan made his decision. Set course for the neutral zone. Maximum speed. "What about our pursuers?" "Let them follow. Maybe we can lose them in all the chaos." As the new soul changed course, Giwan held Baal close. She had stopped trembling and seemed calmer now that they were taking action. "I promise to keep you safe," he whispered to her. "I am not going to break that promise." Baal looked up at him and made a soft, trusting sound. Whatever happened. Next, they would face it together. The Terminus Gate was the worst possible place for a space battle. It was a huge ring of metal and energy that created a tunnel through hyperspace, allowing ships to travel between different parts of the galaxy. Hundreds of ships passed through it every day, and it was always crowded and dangerous. G1 had hoped to slip through quietly, but his luck had run out. As the new soul approached the gate, alarms started going off all over the ship. "Captain, we have a problem," Neon said, her voice tight with fear. "All our pursuers are here, and they are not being friendly with each other." On the main screen, Juan could see a scene of chaos. The hegemony cruiser Iron Fist was facing off against the Shadow Syndicate ships. The Dragon Consortium vessel Golden Scale was positioning itself between them. Scattered around the area were dozens of other ships, some trying to flee and others moving in to see what was happening. "They are all trying to get to us first," Hyunwoo said from his engineering station. "This is about to become a war zone." Baal was sitting on Juan's lap, and her scales were glowing brighter than he had ever seen them. She was making soft, worried sounds and kept looking at the screen. "Can we go around the gate?" Juan asked. "Not without adding weeks to our journey," Neon said, "and they would just follow us anyway. Then we go through. Fast." "Sir, that gate is about to become the center of a battle. We will be flying right into the middle of it. We do not have a choice." The first shots were fired just as the new soul reached the outer edge of the gate area. Commander Kang had apparently decided that if she could not capture Baal, she would not let anyone else have her either. The Iron Fist opened fire on the Shadow Syndicate ships. Yoon Ji-hoon responded immediately. His 3 ships spread out and began attacking the hegemony cruiser from different angles. The space around the gate filled with laser blasts and explosions. Elder. Beak's ship tried to stay out of the fight at first, but when a stray blast hit their shields, they joined the battle. The Golden Scale was smaller than the Iron Fist, but faster and more maneuverable. "This is insane," Nain said, as she piloted the new soul through the chaos. "There are civilian ships everywhere." She was right. The battle had trapped dozens of innocent vessels in the area. Some were trying to flee, others were looking for places to hide. Few unlucky ones had already been hit by stray weapons fire. "Incoming message from the Iron Fist," Hyunwoo reported. "Put it through," Guan said, Commander. Kong's angry voice filled the bridge. "Captain Lee, this is your last chance. Surrender the creature now, or I will destroy your ship, along with everyone else here. You would risk killing innocent people just to get Bile? Juan asked. The needs of the Empire come first. That creature is too dangerous to remain free. She is not dangerous. She is just a baby. A baby that can influence minds and see the future. Do you have any idea what the Empire could do with that kind of power? Giwan looked at Bile, who was listening to every word. Her large eyes were full of sadness, as if she understood that people were fighting and dying because of her. I will never give her to you, Giwan said. Then you will all die together. The transmission ended, and immediately the Iron Fist turned its main guns toward the new soul. But before it could fire, Yoon Ji-hoon's ships attacked again, forcing the cruiser to defend itself. We need to reach the gate, Juan said. We are in hyperspace. They cannot follow us immediately. I am trying, but there are too many ships in the way, Neon said. The battle was getting worse. More ships were arriving, drawn by the chance to capture or kill the famous hybrid dragon. Some were bounty hunters, others were military vessels from smaller governments. Everyone wanted a piece of the action. The golden scale broke away from the main battle and headed straight for the new soul. Elderbeak's voice came over the communicator. Captain Lee, you have caused enough trouble. We will end this now. The Dragon Consortium ship was fast and heavily armed. It began firing at the new soul with weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. They wanted to capture the ship, intact so they could get to Bael. Shields are failing, Hyunwoo reported. We cannot take much more of this. Juan felt helpless. His ship was unarmed and surrounded by enemies. His crew was in danger, and innocent people were dying in the battle around them. All because he had tried to save one small dragon? Byel suddenly jumped down from his lap and ran to the center of the bridge. Her scales were now glowing so brightly that they lit up the entire room. She spread her small wings and made a sound, unlike anything Jiwan had ever heard from her. What is she doing? Neon asked. Before Giwan could answer, he felt something strange happening in his mind. It was like a warm, calm feeling spreading through his thoughts. He could think more clearly, and his fear began to fade. I feel it too, Yunwoo said, his voice filled with wonder. She is doing something to us. But it was not just them. On the main screen, they could see that the battle was changing. Ships that had been firing at each other were slowing down. Some had stopped shooting entirely. Bile's influence was spreading beyond their ship. Touching the minds of everyone in the area, she was not controlling them or forcing them to do anything. Instead, she was helping them think clearly about what they were doing. Commander Kong's voice came over the open communication channel. But now she sounded confused and uncertain. What is happening? Why did my gunners stop firing? It is the dragon, Yoon Ji-hoon said. She is affecting our minds somehow. This is impossible, Elder Beak said. Dragons do not have this kind of power. Dreamweavers did, Jiwan said, speaking. To all of them, Bial is not just a dragon. She is something new, something peaceful. She does not want to hurt anyone. For a moment, the entire battle stopped. Dozens of ships hung in space, their crews struggling to understand what they were feeling. The anger and greed that had driven them to fight was being replaced by something else. Compassion, maybe? Or just the ability to see clearly. But the moment did not last long. Elderbeak was the first to break free of Bile's influence. I will not be controlled by an abomination, she said. The Golden Scale's weapons powered up again. If we cannot capture it, we will destroy it. The Dragon Consortium ship fired everything it had at the new soul, but something incredible happened. Just before the weapons hit, a shimmering barrier appeared around Jiwan's ship. Energy blasts struck the barrier and simply disappeared. Bial was creating some kind of protective shield, but the effort was costing her. She was glowing even brighter now, and Jiwan could see that she was in pain. She cannot keep this up, he said. It is too much for her. Other ships began firing again as they broke free of Bile's influence. The barrier around the new soul flickered and grew weaker. Then something unexpected happened. The mysterious sixth ship, the one with no identification, suddenly appeared between the new Sol and the attacking vessels. It was sleek and beautiful, unlike any ship design Jiwan had ever seen. A new voice came over the communicator, speaking in a language that sounded ancient and musical. Then the same voice spoke in Galactic Standard. "Leave the child alone." "Are you?" Commander Kong demanded. "You're the last of the Dream Weavers, and that child is under our protection." The mysterious ship began to glow with the same silver light that surrounded Bile. Suddenly every weapon in the area stopped working. Not damaged or destroyed, just simply turned off. "Impossible," Elderbeak whispered. "Your weapons were designed to cause harm," the Dreamweaver said. "We have simply reminded them of their true purpose, which is to protect life, not destroy it." Bile's barrier disappeared, and she collapsed on the bridge floor. Giwan rushed to her side and picked her up. She was still breathing, but she was exhausted. "The child has shown great courage today," the Dreamweaver continued. "She tried to prevent violence even though it put her own life at risk. This is the true spirit of our people." "That creature is an abomination," Elderbeak said, though her voice had lost much of its anger. "That child is hope," the Dreamweaver replied. "She represents a new beginning, a bridge between our peoples. Those who would harm her will find us in their way." Commander Kong tried to restart her weapons, but nothing happened. "This is not over. The Empire will find another way. The Empire will learn, as all must learn, that some things are more important than power." The Dreamweaver's ship moved closer to the new Sol. "Captain Lee, you have shown great kindness to one of our children. We will remember this." "Is she going to be okay?" Jiwan asked, holding Bile close. "She will recover. But she has used much of her strength today. She will need time to heal. Can I keep her? Will you take her away?" There was a pause before the Dreamweaver answered. "She has chosen you, just as you chose her. That bond cannot be broken by anyone. But know that she will grow stronger, and someday she may need to help others as you have helped her." The mysterious ship began to fade, becoming translucent like a ghost. "We go now, but we will be watching. The child will never be alone." And then they were gone, as if they had never been there at all. The battle was over. One by one, the attacking ships began to withdraw. Without their weapons, they had no way to capture or harm Bile. Some left in anger, others in confusion. But they all left. Giwan sat on the bridge floor, holding Bile in his arms. She was sleeping now, exhausted from her efforts to protect everyone. Her scales had returned to their normal dark blue color, but they still shimmered faintly. "Is it really over?" Ian asked. "For now," Giwan said. "But I think our quiet life just ended forever." He looked at Bile's peaceful face and smiled. She had shown incredible courage today, trying to stop a war even though she was just a baby. She had protected not just him and his crew, but everyone in the area. Maybe the Dreamweaver was right. Maybe she really was hope for the future. 2 years had passed since the battle at Terminus Gate, and life had changed in ways Giwan never could have imagined. He stood on the observation deck of New Terra Colony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of children playing and adults talking. It was a peaceful sound, one that still surprised him sometimes. BYEO was sleeping in a patch of warm sunlight near his feet. She had grown much larger over the past 2 years. Now about the size of a large dog, but she was still smaller than a normal adult dragon. Her scales had changed too, developing beautiful patterns of blue and silver that shimmered when she moved. Most importantly, she looked healthy and happy. "The evening reports are ready, Captain," a familiar voice said behind him. Giwan turned to see Nayin approaching with a datapad. She was not his navigator anymore. Now she was the colony's communication officer, helping coordinate between New Terra and the dozens of other settlements that had joined their growing community. "How many new arrivals today?" Guan asked. 15 families and 3 more dragons?" Nayan said with a smile. "The dragons are all young ones that were rejected by other buyers. Our human partners found us through the underground network." The underground network was something that had developed naturally after news of Bile's story spread across the galaxy. People began to realize that many of the defective dragons were not broken at all. They were just different, and those differences made them special. It had started small. A few families here and there looking for a place where their unusual dragons would be accepted. But word spread quickly, and soon there was a steady stream of refugees coming to New Terra Colony. Any problems with integration? Juan asked. Oh, nothing. Serious. The Shin family's dragon, Hanbull, is having trouble adjusting to group activities. She is very shy around other dragons. What about her human partner? Little Minjae is doing fine. He has been helping in the school and making friends quickly. Giwan nodded. Children usually adapted faster than the adults. They did not have years of prejudice and fear to overcome, and the adults, which most are settling in well. Dr. Choi has been invaluable in the medical center. Her dragon Nuri has been helping diagnose illnesses before the patients even know they are sick. This was one of the unexpected benefits of the dragon-human partnerships. The dragon's special abilities, combined with human knowledge and technology, created possibilities that neither species could achieve alone. Hyunwoo came jogging up to them, slightly out of breath. He had been working in the main settlement, helping design new buildings for the growing population. "Captain, you need to see this," he said, holding up his datapad. "We just received a message from the Galactic Council." Juan felt a familiar worry. The Galactic Council was the governing body for most of the civilized galaxy. If they were taking an interest in New Terra Colony, it might not be good news. "What do they want?" he asked. "They want to meet with you?" "Officially, they are calling you the founder of the first successful interspecies integration program in galactic history." Integration program. "Look at what we have built here," Neon said, gesturing toward the settlement. Humans and dragons working together, solving problems that neither could handle alone. It is something completely new. She was right. Over the past 2 years, they had discovered that dragon-human partnerships could accomplish amazing things. The dragon's emotional sensitivity helped humans work together better. Their ability to sense danger prevented accidents and conflicts. And their unique perspectives on problems led to solutions that pure human thinking might never have found. "The Council wants to make this official," Hyunwoo continued. "They want to establish formal guidelines for dragon-human partnerships and create more colonies like this one." Bile stirred at his feet, opening her eyes and looking up at him. She made a questioning sound, as if asking what all the excitement was about. "What do you think, girl?" Juan asked, crouching down to pet her. "Should we make this official?" Bile stood up and stretched, then walked to the edge of the observation deck. She looked out over the colony, where dozens of dragons and humans were going about their evening activities. Some dragons were helping in the gardens, using their sharp claws to tend delicate plants. Others were playing with human children, their gentle nature making them perfect companions. She made a soft, contented sound and walked back to Giwan. When she reached him, she did something she had never done before. She spoke, not in words, but directly into his mind. It was not controlling or intrusive, just a sharing of thoughts and feelings. She showed him memories of her early days, cold and hungry in the garbage bins of Nexus Station. She shared her fear when the hunters were chasing them, and her determination to protect the people she loved. And she showed him her hope for the future, a galaxy where creatures like her would never be abandoned or hunted again. "She wants us to do it," Jiwon said, understanding her message perfectly. "She wants to help other dragons find homes." "Can you hear her thoughts now?" Neon asked in amazement. "Not exactly. It is more like sharing feelings and ideas. She has been able to do this for a while, but this is the first time she has shown me something so complex." Bile walked over to Nehun and Hyunwoo, looking at each of them with her large, intelligent eyes. They both smiled and reached out to pet her. Over the years, she had become as important to them as she was to Guan. "So what do we tell the Galactic Council?" Hyunwoo asked. "Tell them yes, but with conditions," Giwan said. "This cannot be about politics or control. It has to be about helping dragons and humans who want to be together." "Agreed," Nain said. "And we make sure that no one can use these partnerships for military purposes. Dragons are not weapons." "What about the Hegemony Empire and the other groups that tried to capture Bai'il?" "They have mostly given up," Hainu said. Once word got out about the Dreamweavers protecting the colonies, the smart ones decided it was not worth the risk. And the not-so-smart ones? They learned the hard way that attacking a colony full of psychic dragons is a bad idea. This was true. There had been 3 attempts to raid New Terra Colony in the past year. All had failed spectacularly, not because of violence, but because the dragons had simply made the attackers realize how pointless their mission was. Most of the would-be raiders had ended up asking for asylum and staying on as colonists as they talked. The sun continued to set, and the colony's lights began to come on. Giwan could see families gathering for dinner, children doing homework with dragons curled up beside them, and adults working together on projects that would have been impossible just a few years ago. There is something else, Neon said. The Council wants to name you as the official ambassador for interspecies relations. Ambassador? I am just a cargo hauler. You are just a cargo hauler, Hyunwoo corrected. Now you are the person who started a revolution. Guan looked down at Bael, who was watching him with what looked like amusement. What do you think? Am I ambassador material? Bael made a sound that was definitely laughter. Then she stood up on her hind legs and put her front paws on his chest, just like she used to do when she was tiny. The gesture was so familiar and comforting that Jiwan felt tears in his eyes. I think she approves, Nayan said. That night Jiwan sat in his private quarters, working on his response to the Galactic Council. Bael was in her usual place, sprawled across the foot of his bed. She was too big now to curl up on his pillow like she used to, but she still insisted on sleeping on his bed every night. Her soft breathing filled the room. It's a sound that had become as familiar to him as his own heartbeat, even though she was now large and powerful. She was still the same gentle creature he had rescued from the garbage bins 2 years ago as he worked. Juan thought about how much their lives had changed. He had gone from being an unknown cargo hauler to being invited to address the Galactic Council. His ship, the New Soul, was now a museum piece, preserved as a symbol of the first dragon-human partnership. But the most important changes were not the big, dramatic ones. They were the small, daily moments. Baal greeting him every morning with happy sounds. The way she still followed him around the colony like a devoted pet. The trust and love in her eyes when she looked at him. He finished his letter to the council and set down his datapad. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and responsibilities. There would be meetings and negotiations, and probably more people trying to use their success for their own purposes. But tonight, it was just him and Bael, like it had been from the beginning. He reached over and gently petted her head. She opened her eyes and looked at him with that expression of complete trust that had never changed. Thank you, he whispered to her, for choosing me, for trusting me, for changing everything. Baal made a soft content sound and closed her eyes again. Her scales shimmered faintly in the dim light, and Jiwan could feel the peace and happiness radiating from her. Outside his window, New Terra Colony slept peacefully under a blanket of stars.
Ow!
Tomorrow would bring new dragons and new families looking for homes. It would bring challenges and opportunities and the chance to make the galaxy a little bit better. But for now, Jiwan was content to watch over his sleeping dragon, just as she had watched over him every night for the past 2 years.